Welcome to Marketer's Alchemy, where we pull back the curtain on the intricate world of data-driven marketing. On this show, we delve into the convergence of marketing as an art form and data as a scientific foundation, unveiling the secrets to turning raw data into marketing gold. I'm your host, Kathryn Turnoff, Senior Product Manager at Deluxe. Join us as we dive into real-life case studies and give you a front row seat to industry pioneers and visionaries. Welcome to Marketer's Alchemy, turning data into gold. I'm Kathryn Turnoff, and I'm here with Jennifer Warren, Vice President of Global Brand Marketing and Creative for Indeed. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
We'd like to start talking a little bit about your career journey. Can you share with your listeners what brought you here to where you are today with Indeed?
I would love to. I would say my career has not been a straight line, but each experience I've had has built on the other. I started out at a small local ad agency in my hometown, and that was when I was in college, and I was learning how to write scripts and buy media, as well as even sell advertising to local businesses, which is where I really understood how important advertising and marketing is to a business. When a small business is putting everything they have, into it, you want to really show return for what you do. And then I wanted to move to Austin and was open to pretty much any job in the field of marketing. And I was fortunate in that my first one was at a direct response media buying company and managed campaigns for everything from pillows. I'm talking about the 1-800 number type of a media agency to skincare and all kinds of gadgets. But what I really learned there was how you could look at how the media buys drove performance on an hourly basis. And move the media around to drive more effectiveness. And it was really fun to get up every day and see like what's working, what's not working, and move things around. And then I went from there to join a major creative agency working with top brands like Walmart and Southwest Airlines. And that's where I found my passion for brand building and spent 15 years or so there. And went on from there to working with some digital agencies. I've been a CMO a few times, and all of that then led me to my global role at Indeed and helping people get jobs where I can bring both brand and performance together.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm excited to dig into the data pieces that you look at, which it sounds like you've been doing for a long time. I always love it when anyone's excited to see what the data tells them. So let's go to our first segment, Alchemy Unveiled, Mixing Marketing Potions. So on that topic of data, what kind of data does your team use?
We have so much data at Indeed, if you can imagine. We are, a brand that speaks to all job seekers and helps them get jobs. 350 million unique visitors every single month to our website. We've got all the job seekers. So I'll start with how we use that data and a fascinating insight, which is 30% of people who come to Indeed looking for a job leave the what they're looking to do box empty and just fill in the where box, right? And so that in itself was data that has led to us building product experiences that help people discover like new opportunities that they may have never thought about, whether it's industry switches, career switches. So I always think that's fascinating, like what you can learn just based on how people are, searching for a job. And then, beyond that, we of course track our performance and our brand campaigns through brand tracking studies and really understanding what type of messaging and getting insights on what's driving our performance across brand and performance. Things like brand consideration and brand of choice or data points that we really look to measure and help us understand what's working, what's not working, as well as looking how brand and performance work together. So all of these different data points help us inform how to allocate our dollars, what our messaging should be. And being data driven is one of our core values at Indeed. So we don't really start a meeting without first looking at the data.
We love that around here. I definitely want to dig into that brand and performance marketing. But first, could we talk a little bit about the metrics that you use to determine success of the marketing efforts? Are there some that you give more weight to than others?
I guess it depends obviously on what we're trying to achieve at any given time. But if I were answering that, at the highest level, we're always wanting to drive new user growth. We're wanting to drive apply start. So we want people to come to the site and apply on the start. So apply when they come. And so we measure that. And then from a brand health perspective, we look at unaided consideration. Our category is one where people may only search for a job every couple of years or longer. So it is important for us to know that when people think of finding a job or looking to hire, that we're going to be top of mind for them because of how infrequent someone might use the category. That's important to us. Another one that we have begun paying more attention to than ever is share of branded job search. So really understanding within our category how the percentage of people who search specifically for Indeed compared to those that search for just generic jobs and or our competitors. That is an increasingly important metric for us to understand our brand health on a much more, I would say, regular basis. Because, the unaided consideration, all of that can move quite slowly.
Definitely, that makes sense. So if we are looking at thinking about that attribution, right, there's often a push and pull between last click and media mix. How does your team tackle that? How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, that is certainly a debate. You must have been in the rooms with one. You probably hear that quite often in your
Yeah.
interview. It is a very hard conversation often to have with people who are relying a lot more on last click to make decisions. But what we've found is it's all important. And so it's really about triangulating all of the data. Last click's important, but as you know, if you only looked at last click and how one single channel drove, I will say, like, someone to come sign up at Indeed, you're missing the full picture, which is they, of course, might have seen an ad before they clicked that helped them understand why they should choose Indeed. Or they may have heard from one of their friends. They just got a job on Indeed and seen them post about it on social. So I think part of it for us is really aligning on a shared belief and understanding across brand teams, performance teams, even product teams on uh, just logically speaking, let's just put ourselves in the shoes of consumers, like think about all the different things that influence our decision. And so it's really about aligning on that from a methodology perspective, and that we've got to use a lot of different data points to inform our decision. If any single one of them is going to lead us in the wrong direction.
Do you find that as you talk about it, and I think that makes sense, right? Like just logically, maybe your friend mentioned it and you remember, you see the ad and that
Yeah.
jogs your memory. But do you find that people are really putting more faith in those last click than the other information that you get? I mean, despite just
Yeah.
the logic of it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And that's a challenge for sure. One of the things that we have done to help build faith in things like media mix modeling is calibrate the model based on different information. So whether it's experiments, clean room experiments that we're doing, or using last click data, we use that to like look at what we're learning from our model, for example, and say, okay, this is like out of line. So that means we should go probe a little bit more on this channel and what the model is telling us. Because I think last click is a lot simpler to measure. And so it's a lot easier to put your faith in that. And that is how, when I think about performance marketing, right, that was for a long time the way everything was measured. But as the world has become more complicated, there's so many media channels, a lot of them a lot harder to measure. And a lot of that, in my world, when it comes to brand, I've had to really work hard at trying to demonstrate that brand and performance are things that work together. And demonstrate the value in what we do in building the brand, and that is just as important as performance marketing, even though it's a lot harder to actually go and measure it, because a lot of conversation I'm in is certainly people are a lot more comfortable with the last click data than they are media mix model. It's like, that's a black box, or how do you know that that's actually accurate? A lot more questioning around those methods.
If we think about, right, that intersection of brand and performance marketing, what data are you looking at to assess the influence of the two pieces on each other?
So that's also been a hard one to tackle, but we do experiments to help us understand that. So I'll give you an example. Anytime we enter a new market, we talk about what comes first, brand or performance, or does it need a mix, right? And often it was performance. We'll start with performance, but there's been quite a few markets where that has not worked. And it was actually a nice day for us when the performance team said, "Come, hey, like, can we layer on some brand here? We want to see what it can do." And so right now in a market, we are testing. There was a market that performance, I'll say SEM, has been running. It's just not working. So we've layered on some brand campaign messaging. We're going to give it a few months and see what the impact of that is. And that's going to help us understand the ability for brand messaging and helping people understand why to come to Indeed, how that's going to drive the performance. Is it going to hopefully drive our cost per acquisition down? And that also gives us a better understanding of the formula to approach our new markets in, moving forward. And of course, we've got to do tests like that, in a lot of different areas to get confidence around that. But we're constantly trying to build tests and experiments to help us understand the relationships.
I love and value the idea of these experiments. Can you talk about anything you learned that was surprising in some of these, in the data that you found from these?
I think, yes, I think everybody has learned some things that are surprising, which is that brand communications, even in their self, drive performance, as well as performance helps build brand. I think for a long time, we operated in silos between the two. But there's, tracking that you can do, technology that can show you once you see a brand ad if you're going to the site, for example. And so when we were starting to implement that technology, I think there was a lot of surprise, like, oh, if you see a brand ad, you're going to sign up, as well as we understand that performance marketing we see drives brand consideration. So I think the big thing was they cannot be treated at all in a silo, and both work hard in driving both your brand perceptions and growing, behavioral metrics that we're looking at too, like apply starts.
I know both sides right now are calling that a win, right? They're like,
Yeah,
ha, told you. So
absolutely.
that's great.
Well, we were thrilled, we were all thrilled to see that data.
Right.
Yeah,
You can move from being frenemies to friends. I like that.
that is right. And we do act that way. Now I would say there was a period of time, even at Indeed, and you see this everywhere, where you'd even hear people say, should we do brand or performance, or brand did this versus performance that did that, or brand drove more performance than performance, and vice versa.
Right.
And we had to really say, like, stop it, like, stop the madness. It is brand and performance. We actually use the term now brandformance for a lot of what we do,
Oh, that's
look,
great.
drive both. And I think that's really important, to your point, is the mindset shifts that need to happen in the teams. I know, I really feel like marketing has done itself a disservice over the years in how we talk about what we do, and created this separation between brand building and performance marketing. And I think we need to get rid of that separation moving forward. I mean, brand has a marketing problem, is the way I think about it, because if you think about it, just the separation using the term brand versus performance implies that brand doesn't drive performance, right?
Right.
So I feel like I spend a lot of my time, having to say brand, which drives performance too, and you shouldn't need to use those disclaimers.
If you think about maybe where people's attitudes are now versus early on in your career. Do you feel like you've been successful in moving that shift, or do you feel like it's about the same?
I actually do think we've been successful. I'll share just a quick story when I first started at Indeed, and I was in a board meeting, and I was very proud to explain how unaided consideration had moved 3 points over the last, 6 months. And but we had invested, $100 million. I'll just, for example, I don't remember what the investment level was. And the CFO looked at me and said, Jennifer, can you tell me what 1 point of UAC means to our bottom line? Like, what does that mean in revenue? Of course, I had like no idea how to answer that question. But when I left, I made sure that in the future I could answer that question. And that's what started our journey with our media mix modeling that we do now, is really trying to understand how building those brand metrics impact our revenue, and really looking at return on ad spend, also just looking at the benefit and having brand equity and how that makes performance and everything we do work a lot harder for us. But those are very hard questions and very complicated questions to answer. And I can't tell you that now I walk in the room and I use a media mix model and people are like, oh my God, Jennifer, that's amazing that you've driven, millions of dollars of revenue. Because there's always a little more probing on, well, how's the model built and how do we know? But there's absolutely a shift in the understanding and belief that brand drives performance, through all of the work we've done in educating. And we had to, as a team, get better at experimenting, at talking the same language, at understanding what was important to the business and showing how brand was driving those metrics as well. And I think that's where we have found success. To me, as I mentioned earlier, it was a great day when the performance team said, please come layer in brand. We've also had situations where the product team, has said the brand has really carried us through this period because people are thinking about us. So, in reflecting on that, even when I started my career at Indeed, people associated brand with a TV commercial. Like, I felt like I was the TV girl. And I was like, what? That is not what,
No, right.
not what I do. I mean, we do that, but that is not what I do. So yeah, it's been a journey, but a really good one, and rewarding to see how things have shifted.
And it sounds like speaking their language and using data to back it up has really helped you kind of sway their minds and people allow people to see the value. That's
Yeah,
great.
that's right. That's right.
So let's move on to our next segment, from nuggets to campaign gold. And I know that you're doing some interesting campaigns and experiments regarding consumer insights and AI agents as consumer scouts. Can you tell us about some of your social listening experiments?
I would love to. I love social listening. That team is probably tired of me like turning to them right now for everything. But I feel like it's such a place to get rich, real time understanding and insights on the brand. And so, the most recent example, as we were gearing up to launch some AI powered products, you had mentioned one is called Scout, which uses AI, of course, conversationally to help address that situation where people are leaving the wet box blank, and help people use tools to find opportunities. We were talking about how to position it, and all started debating, do we call it an AI powered career companion, or do we just say career companion? So really looked at, one, how other people had launched and started talking about these products, and tried to understand how people were feeling about AI in general when it came to job search and hiring. And one of the things that surprised us was people weren't saying, oh, yay, this is great, give me some more AI. They actually talked about it creating this cycle of doom, because for job seekers, they felt like it created a more competitive environment because it was a lot easier to apply to jobs and get your resumes done. And on the employer side, they felt more flooded with applications, and a lot of them started looking the same, and they needed to really understand what makes this person stand out. So that was really important insight, not only in the way we position the product, which we've decided on the job seeker side, we're not going to use AI, we're just going to talk about the benefits. And then on the employer side, helping them understand how we're using it to help them filter the candidates was a really important insight. And then on top of that, building content that educated job seekers on how to use it as a companion, but don't let it do all the work for you. Like, it's sort of like how we talk to our creative teams, right? Like, we still need to see the you in it. And here's how to make sure your skills, your unique personality and experience needs to come to the table. So it's a really great way, I think, to understand in real time what people are saying and thinking, and then leveraging that further.
For some of our listeners who aren't as familiar, can you tell us a little bit more about what social listening is?
Sure. So we've got, various social listening tools that leverage AI and can synthesize what people are saying online around specific topics. So, for example, in this case, we used it to understand what are people saying about AI and job search. We asked it specifically about how people were responding to competitors who had launched certain AI related products, and then what people are saying about Indeed. So it's basically leveraging AI and tools that will be able to capture various conversations going on across our social channels around these topics and synthesize and find the insights for us.
Got it. So you're using AI to analyze what people are saying, and then that informed you that maybe people aren't really into having AI help in this particular instance.
Is important, and we would have made a mistake otherwise.
So I heard about a recent AI experiment where in one of your campaigns, you generated a massive amount of content and then used AI to help assess calls to action and other aspects to determine what was most successful. Can you kind of fill our listeners in on the background of this campaign?
Yes. So we are spending a lot of time, as everyone is, I'm sure, right now, understanding how to best leverage AI to personalize at scale, personalize creative at scale. And so we were piloting a new technology where we created 400 or so assets up front for, in this case, it was for digital display. And we were trying to drive Indeed apply starts within several different industry segments. So, nursing, supply chain, technology, finance. If you can imagine, the message and the call to action for each audience needed to be different. So we created a lot of assets, and then we leveraged the technology to help us serve up the right assets to the right person, of course, at the right time, for learning, and compared that with a campaign in those categories where we were making those decisions with less creative. And we saw that the test drove 126% an increase in job applications compared to our traditional methods. So it was a huge learning for us. I'll say we've also learned just, you know, uh, things like you've got to not feed the system too many versions. Like, we might have overdone it a little bit.
So
I can't
400 might be the top. Okay.
So there's a lot of learnings that came out of it in terms of what people were responding to, what time of day for the category, and then also just how to really adjust, moving forward, how many versions of things that we put into the system at any given time. But it was great learning for us. We want to be doing that more.
I love it. And it sounds like it really resonated as well with your audience, right? Because they're connecting and then completing the activities that you want them to do.
That's right. And that's what it's all about, is like, how do you use AI to become more relevant? Like, you've still got to be creative. We still need our creative team to come up with the big ideas and the right strategy, and then using the technology to optimize and get the right message in the right hands that are going to be the most effective. That's what I'm so excited about, is being able to personalize at scale.
Yeah. And like you said, the you is still in there, right? Your creative team is still in there. It's just using tools and maybe or the parts they're not as skilled at, like evaluating 300 pieces of creative, right? Like
That's right.
that's the piece that you can leverage for AI so that you know what's really landing. That's
That's
great.
right. It's so important.
So now I'd like to move on to our last segment. We like to have a little bit of fun here in what we call the gold rush round.
Okay.
So for you, what comes first, brand or performance marketing? Is brand the chicken or the egg?
I'm going to say brandformance and the
I love it.
debate on brand versus performance is outdated and it's a false choice. So I'm going to say both. I don't know if that's fair.
They are our new relationship. Brandformance is together forever now.
Love it.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the simplest marketing insight that has had the biggest impact for you?
Clarity beats cleverness. So you have to be really careful and creative to not try to be too clever. A lot of times people just want to know, what is this going to do for me? And that has been an insight we've learned through creative testing.
What's one data mistake you will never forget making?
Early in my career, I would say it was mistaking activity for progress. It's not about your to-do list. It's about what is that actually doing for the business and making sure you're focused on outcomes, not activity.
Definitely. And then finally, what's the biggest data challenge of brand and creative marketing?
100%, it's about demonstrating the value of brand equity and creativity to the business. It is the biggest challenge, but it also can be the most rewarding if you can figure it out.
Are there any tips for our listeners that you've learned to help show that value?
Yes, it really is about understanding what metrics are most important to your CEO and CFO, and then focusing on experiments and methods to tie the work you're doing to it. For us, of course, revenue is going to be important to all businesses, and that would be for us using media mix modeling has been the most effective way, coupled with experiments, to do that.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jennifer. Had a great time. How can our listeners learn more about what you're working on?
What I would love is for people to download the Indeed app because that is where our new Scout experience is going to be. And that is one of the best examples of, I think, innovation that we've had in our category in a while.
Great. I love it. To never miss an episode, subscribe to the show wherever you listen. I'm Kathryn Chernoff, and this is Marketer's Alchemy.